Good morning. Welcome to TERRA at Home. I'm here with Colleen Zimmerman, and now officially inside December, we are talking about, again, some fresh greens for the inside of your house. And again, I love how we can get super, super tiny and make them personalized if we wanted to. I like the idea you were saying about making them in that place settings, right?
Yeah, you could do, like, these are just little votive holders, so you can just do little few greens in the votive holders and like really every place setting, and that could be a take home.
So, and that's a nice idea. So cute. Okay, so where should we start off here? We were talking about adding just a little bit of color, so you can take your greens, make them as small as you want, cut back, and then starting adding a little, jazz them up a little, right?
Yeah. This one here, what I've actually done is taken a larger pick and just pulled the leaves off so you can take them apart, and then it gives you some mileage and it makes it scaled to the size of the arrangement for inside.
Right.
Because obviously inside you have to think smaller scale than outside.
Yeah.
And same thing with some of the berry sprays, and they can also be taken apart. I'm just using a pair of wire cutters.
And these are actually artificial.
Yes.
So again, adding, so you have real fresh greens, but adding some of the artificial elements.
Yeah, and then that just gives the long-lasting ability inside as well. And these ones, although outside we use the soil to put the greens in, inside we use floral foam. So this is just what it looks like here. You soak it in water all the way through, and then that's what holds the water. And then you just water it like a house plant.
Okay.
So I'll just put a few more berries in this one here.
This is really something that anyone can do. I mean, you just have to experiment. It can look, it appear like that it's so difficult to do. I mean, it may not look quite as great as if when you guys do them, but it's still your own thing.
Definitely.
And you practice, and you know, it'll start to look cute. I love this bow, by the way. I love the ribbon; is amazing.
Yeah, so that gives more of like a wintry feel rather than specifically Christmas. So
Totally
this would be great in a powder room or something like that. And although you can do it yourself, we do have pre-done ones at the store as well, so you can choose one that we have, or again, we do custom arrangements.
Sure, like this little guy over here. This is great. And again, it really, we were talking about containers in the past, you know, about a month ago, and we were talking about some of the outdoor containers, but this is amazing because again, it really does add character to it when, depending on what you're putting it in. So
definitely, and that one I just made it in a 6-inch pot, and then you can move it around too. So if you're having a dinner party and you want that in your living room, and you have whites in your living room, pop it in a white pot.
Smart.
Then for New Year's, you can pop it in a gold pot. Jazz it up a bit so you can change the look too. And with that green one there, I just used again a larger pick and just taken it apart to disperse it through.
That's nice.
And then the sparkle's always nice for inside too, because then you get that iridescent look when you get the candle light going and things like that.
Really nice.
So then this easy one here, again, I'm taking a larger pick and just pulling it apart.
And some of them come apart quite easily.
Yes.
They're pretty easy. I mean, again, you have some good, you know, sort of wire
pair
cutters
of wire
there.
cutters. Yeah, don't use your pruners.
That help. Or your scissors.
Or scissors.
Sawing with your scissors, which is what I generally
You can see how many pieces you can really get out of this, and you just kind of tuck them in amongst the greens. Just all the way around.
Again, we were talking about too, at the end, when you're done with all this, you can take this out and save the artificials.
Exactly.
They're already done, right? So they've already been cut now, so use them again next year.
And don't think of just specifically Christmas things too. You know, you can use other branches. If you have dried hydrangeas in the garden, you can use dried items as well. So that it does not have to be all just the artificials. It could be dried live things too.
Sure.
So, and then this one the first one only had BC pine and cedar. This has just pine and a little bit of boxwood in it.
Right.
So it gives you a little bit of simple.
Really cute.
And then speaking of the dried accents here, these are just, again, out of scale for an indoor arrangement being so large.
Right.
But just by cutting them down a bit. You can even use like just the plain gold sticks too. It just gives you some texture.
But, and again, also talking about how you're placing some of these, right? So if you're, you know, you're working in odd numbers, you're saying, and again, you are looking for texture and for height differences, and variation in color.
Important on thinking on where this is going to go. So this could go on a table very easily, but if it's going to go in the center of a table, you don't want to be looking across the table and all you see is the arrangement. So
if you're talking to people, you're like,
yeah, you don't want to be looking around the arrangement to be talking to your guests.
You do have to really consider that, because it might look nice at the time while it's just sitting on your dining room table while guests are arriving, but then once everybody sits down and they're at that level, not so great.
Yeah, one rule of thumb that I was once taught is put your elbow on the table and your hand on your chin, and you should be able to see over the arrangement, or the arrangement should be above that, so that you can have an eye-level conversation with somebody.
Okay, so if you had something that was sort of raised up and then at the top, then you can get away with that.
Exactly.
That's good. All right.
So you can add a little bit more to that, but that's just simple to add a little bit of bling.
Okay.
And then an easy one is just taking simple, like a bunch of boxwood, and just doing a plain, again, it's in a nice little votive holder here with the greens in it. And then you just add the
This is
boxwood
something,
on all
as you're
around.
saying, like if you even just went with this, you could keep this kind of going for a long period of time in your house throughout the course
Definitely.
of the winter.
Boxwood in particular is very good for inside because even if it does dry, it doesn't really change color.
Yeah, it
So
just
it
sort of petrifies.
Exactly. And then it just stays green all
It's
the
always
time.
good. I like that.
So you can see as this kind of takes shape here.
But some people really it's just a nice sort of getaway from life sometimes, just to do something like this, and it's really easy to do.
It is.
And a lot of times, people are going and snipping their neighbor's boxwood, but you can just buy it all here. It's a little easier, so you're not sneaking around
Yeah.
at night in people's gardens.
It's all fresh here, and
Yeah, that's
between
right.
the boxwood, we also have eucalyptus and the seeded eucalyptus that you can use in something like this, and various other types of greens that are really interesting. The Oregonia is a variegated version that looks similar to this.
Nice. Yeah.
So you can use that
And
as
you know
well.
what's great too? Again, you're also getting some fragrance from this as well, right? When it's
Definitely.
inside your house and it just has that beautiful smell of winter.
Especially
Love
over the
it.
winter when everything's brown and dull outside before we get the snow, then this kind of gives you that little breath of freshness.
Right.
The fragrance and everything just kind of gives that soothing feel to it.
Now, something like this, because you have, again, you've had this soaking, so you're just going to be adding a little bit of water to this once in a while, just to keep this
Yeah,
this
just like a
moist.
house plant.
Right.
So you just want to keep it moist to the touch.
But you don't have to spray. You don't have to do any spritzing of the leaves. Or
No,
anything.
you don't
Okay.
really need to.
Okay.
But something like this, you can see how quickly you can kind of put it together. And then you can just leave it simple as just boxwood. Just rule of thumb, make sure that you fill it in enough so you don't see any of the greens. Like
right.
you don't want to
so
see any of the.
With more time, yeah, you would just
Yeah,
really fill this in and
exactly.
make it just this cute little. I like
Yeah,
that.
and you can just leave it simple like that and have a bunch of those like on a windowsill or down the center of a table. You could have this as your main focal point.
Sure.
And then a bunch of these little guys just going down the length of your buffet table.
And I think that's what's great is that there are so many just little type of ornamental things to add, so that you can come to the store and you can look around. I mean, there are so many things outside the box too that you can think of to use. I mean, you may even have some ornaments, kicking around. And you're like, you know what? I could add that to that,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
By adding, by getting some of this and then just putting in your own personal touch,
Yeah, like what I've shown you today is fairly simple, but
Yeah.
you can go all out. You can do mantelpieces. Same idea with doing these ones here. You can put the oasis in a 6-inch pot, but then you just use longer pieces to make a mantelpiece.
Right, just stretch it out and make it
And then you can make a
right.
long piece to go either down a mantle or on a buffet.
Yeah.
And then with having the oasis in there, then that's beneficial because especially on a mantle, when you got heat,
Yes,
then that
and
keeps everything
you do
hydrated
have
and
to keep
lasts a
on
lot
top of that.
longer.
Very good.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Some good stuff
Thank you.
again and getting us ready for the holiday season. Thanks, Colleen. We'll be back with more.
TERRA, where color lives.
Good morning, welcome back to TERRA at Home, and I'm here with Fred Somerville from Somerville Nurseries, and we are talking about Christmas trees today, and we are talking about the ones naturally grown in our earth and supporting tree farmers of Ontario. So Fred, let's talk about why this is more important to be buying a fresh, real Christmas tree than the plastic ones. That people seem to think that we're hurting these guys, and this is bad for everybody by cutting down a tree, and we should buy plastic ones.
Right. Well, we look at it as a crop like you would grow any other crop. We pick the seeds, we grow the seedlings. When they're growing, they're producing habitat for animals and birds and preventing erosion of the soil. And we just feel that when you're buying a real tree, I mean, when you get rid of them, they're biodegradable, they're renewable, they're recyclable.
And that's the thing. I mean, a lot of people aren't thinking about all these little things, and I think that's why we want to have this conversation today. Is again, people think, well, if I buy, my fake Christmas tree and I have it every year and I'm putting it up, then I'm saving, I'm saving the trees. But again, as you mentioned, this is a crop for you, so it's like you are supporting your local farmer.
Yeah.
You're buying locally.
Yeah.
Versus where most of the Christmas trees are coming from, very far away.
Yeah.
Just that in itself. Again, never mind talking about some of the environmental things, but if we do talk a little bit about the environmental footprint and what we're dealing with on that side of things, give me some stats on that one.
Well, I guess the big thing when the tree is growing, of course, it's producing oxygen, it's sinking carbon, and as I say, when you cut it down, it just biodegrades and goes away. I mean, if you're bringing plastic trees in from China, one of the things that I've heard is the big boats that bring them in get about 6 inches of distance per gallon when they're coming across. So you can see the carbon footprint is much greater on an artificial tree than a real tree.
Absolutely, and so some people also think they're going to keep that artificial tree for a very long period of time and realize it's not looking so great in so many years, and then when they go to throw that tree out,
it'll sit in the landfill for 1,000 years.
Ever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people will look at such a beautiful tree such as this, and you put it up during the holiday season, say even if it's up for a month, and you're taking care of it and watering it, it looks just as fantastic when you take all the decorations off, and oh, it's such a shame to have to throw this curbside.
Right.
But again, it was grown for its purpose.
It was. The Christmas tree industry in Canada puts billions of dollars back into our economy. It creates a lot of jobs. So we grow it as a crop, we use it, and then we plant it again. Yeah.
And that's the thing, I think a lot of people associate with going and cutting down a Christmas tree in the wild, but that's not what this is about anymore.
No,
this is
no.
farming.
No, in Ontario, there's hardly any trees that are cut out of the wild. We grow them all in plantations now. Yeah.
So there you go. So again, now at the end, when you are putting this Christmas tree curbside, and again, it's all planned with your city, your local city that you live in, and when it's picked up, it's taken care of.
It is, exactly. Yeah.
So, and taken care of to the extent of it is fully 100% biodegradable.
Biodegradable, exactly.
Because it's natural.
Yeah, exactly.
How great is that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about again, the whole process of you growing a tree, and it does take some time. It takes a lot of love and takes a lot of care. And how many years would it take from, say, this guy? What type of tree is this, by the way?
Well, this is a Fraser fir, and right from seed, this tree will have taken about 14 years to get to this height.
Wow.
We put a 5-year transplant to the field, and it's only about a foot tall, and then it takes 10 or 12 years after that. So, and this tree has been pruned annually or trimmed annually. So
that's right, because you're trying to keep its shape.
Exactly.
It won't look quite like this if you just let it go.
no,
it goes
if it was
hairy.
left alone, it'd be twice as tall and half as full.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? Oh,
yeah.
that's right. So pruning obviously
Yeah.
thickens it and
Yeah.
keeps it dense, and
Yeah.
you're getting this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is a lot of tender love and care going into
There
here.
is. And when you grow Fraser fir, you want to leave a little bit of the fringe on that you can hang ornaments on. I mean, that's one of the beauties of this tree. It's got stiff branches,
Yep.
and you can hang ornaments on rather than sticking them in.
Yes. And
Yes.
see, a lot of things people just don't think about, right?
Right.
And again, I know it is. I always find it so hard. I have this love for trees that I find it very hard to get rid of the tree at the end, and I always wish I could just plant this in my backyard.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's
Yeah.
not going to work. But you can put it outside for a little while, and
You can.
You
Yeah,
know.
there's different things.
Sure.
Lots of people do different things when they put them out.
Yeah.
The main thing is to cut a little bit off the trunk before you bring the tree in to keep it safe, and that keeps the tree really well hydrated.
yes.
And a well hydrated tree is not a fire hazard.
Well, and that's the thing, right? And that's actually a good point you brought up. People have talked about the fire hazards in the past, but I mean, it's amazing how much water these trees will drink, right?
It is,
You know, and
especially initially.
Yes,
Yeah.
initially it
Yeah.
is. You have to check on it, like, sometimes a couple times a day.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just like, but again, it's a good, healthy tree.
Yeah.
And in the whole process of going and picking a tree, and what's so nice about that, even like you're again supporting the farmers, but it's a family thing, right? And
Yeah.
even if you are buying them, right at a nursery, it's still a process. The family gets involved. It's your tree, and it's always a special time of year for people, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So with a tree like this, let's talk a little bit about. I mean, obviously watering your tree and making sure. Anything else? Any other tips that we need to know when it comes to taking care?
Well, it's common sense to keep it away from a lot of any heat sources that you may have in the house. Really, that's about the only other thing you have to be careful with. But the main, you've really got to get the tree drawing water and keeping well hydrated. And then this particular tree will last for weeks.
Yes.
Weeks
yes.
and weeks in the house.
Yeah, and again, this is actually probably one of my favorites for sure. What would be the one that you would have the most scent, that you would get the most scent from?
Well, I think the aromatic qualities of the balsam are probably even a little superior to the Fraser.
Okay.
Yeah. And if
Okay.
you want to enhance that each day, if you just take a few needles and crush them up
Okay.
and put them in the water bowl, then you can start the whole thing again.
Because
Yeah.
you're kind of creating, releasing those
Yeah.
oils in
Exactly.
there. Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah,
That's great.
exactly.
Now, again, you know, people are going and they're going out to pick their trees, and they're you know, we're talking about again the fact that you're trying to get some people to graduate and move from that tree that they have at home that they've had kicking around for quite some time. And obviously, once we can get them past that plastic and then get them into this, you know, what would you say would be sort of the tree that people sort of really, that's their main focus, that's what they look for? I know some people have their own favorites, but where would you say people would go? What would you recommend?
Well, some people will like to buy a really scrawny tree because that's what they had when they were kids.
Kind of like the
So-
Charlie Brown tree,
Exactly. So there's that following. But I think nowadays a lot of people are going to the Fraser fir just because of its keepability.
Okay.
And it virtually doesn't lose any needles, which is another thing, so it's very clean.
right? Okay.
So it's clean, it's reasonably aromatic, and it'll last, as I say, almost forever if you keep it well watered.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, this is a very green tree too. Some of
Yep.
them have more of a blue tones to them, and again, it depends also sort of what you're looking at in terms of color tones
Yep.
and size, I
Yep.
guess.
Yep.
If you're getting it, you want to get really like this is actually pretty narrow diameter.
Yeah.
So you can get into some that are really big, fat, and
Yeah, yeah. We try not to produce a tree that's too wide because it gets sort of overbearing in the house or takes the house over.
yes.
And then with color, this is quite blue or silvery
yeah, it's underneath, which is beautiful.
And then on top, it's just got the
It's-
rich
it's the
green
green.
color. And it's not prickly because it's a true fir.
Well, no, and actually, I was going to say that's another thing to consider as well, especially if you have small children and you have animals
Yep.
and different things.
Yep.
And no, you're not going to bring a whole bunch of things into your house by buying a natural tree, right?
you're not, no.
No, and it's good. And again, we're supporting our local farmers, which we love oh so much.
Yep,
So thank you
exactly.
for some good tips. And again, it's all really about your own choice when it comes to choosing a tree, but it's all about, again, creating an environment and a happy holiday season,
Yeah.
and this becomes part of your family for a little
Yeah,
time, right?
exactly.
Thank you
It's
so much, Fred. Really good
it's-
information.
It's a real tradition.
It is a real tradition.
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
it for now. We'll have
Yeah.
more Terra at Home in a bit.
TERRA, where color lives.
You've sat under them and built forts in them. You've swung from them and fell out of them. You've even fallen in love under them. Trees have always held a special place in our hearts and memories. A natural beauty, trees will grow with you and your family and bring color and nature into your world. For your assurance of quality, look for trees and shrubs with the Medallion plant tag. Medallion plants, locally grown, the pride of Niagara.
Good morning. Welcome back to Terra at Home. Just right out of the gun, I want to tell you, of course, this is not a cooking segment. Normally, we would actually be shooting a cooking segment at this point. So hopefully, we're really looking forward to that. But we have something even better to talk to you about right now. We're here with Adrian, and we're at the RBG, and we're in the Mediterranean room, which is such a beautiful place.
It's
so
gorgeous.
nice and warm and cozy in here, especially in the cool winter months, which is what we're talking about. Thank you for coming on our show and allowing
Thanks
us
for
into this
having me.
great space. But we're talking about your holiday traditions, and this is again something that we love about the RBG is just having family events.
Yeah.
So give me some background on what holiday tradition is.
So Holiday Traditions is our holiday event. It started back November 14th and it runs up until January 5th.
Great.
And so on weekends we have Santa, we have a reindeer weekend, we have children's activities going on, and we obviously have our train sets as well.
Yes, so we're watching this little train go in and around behind us here on this track. So if we talk first about the train. So you have two
Yes.
different sets that are set up.
Yes, we do.
One here, and then one's more in the, what do you call that area?
It's the McQuestion Theatre,
Right.
which is sort of in the main center of RBG. So they're trains that were made by a company called Applied Imagination that was created in 1991. And it was created by a man named Paul Bussey, and he has a love, or he combined three of his loves, which was gardening,
Yeah.
architecture, and model trains. And he combined them into this love. So he created this company.
cool.
Yeah, so it was really awesome. So he commissioned train models for private gardens, and it turned out to be this bigger thing. So he actually has hundreds of these model trains throughout the United States. And the one that is our largest holiday train that's only out during the holidays is the one that he installed last year with his team of people. That one is our holiday train. So the theme of that particular one is Canadian landscape. So
Okay,
you're,
okay.
as you see it and as you walk through it,
Yes.
you're going to see Niagara Falls, the CN Tower, you're going to see fishing villages on the west coast and east coast. So it is sort of, as you walk through, the
Okay.
Canadian landscape from the west coast right to the east coast.
It's really neat, and I
Yeah.
think the big focus is we're obviously near the other one right now where we're
Yes.
standing, is the fact that it's built. It's basically a train in a natural landscape, so
That's right.
all of it is like organic materials.
That's right, it's all botanical materials.
love it, so
So
fun.
a lot of the materials that they actually use is bark, because bark decomposes less quickly or not as fast
Right.
as other materials. But you'll see
Okay.
pine cones, acorn tops, flower seed pods, that sort of
Oh,
stuff. But I don't think people really understand until they get here that it actually is all botanical materials,
I
which
know.
fits in really well to the Royal Botanical
Like
Gardens.
seriously, I'm looking at it and I'm looking at the way they because it's all raised, so it's like this bridge structure. So they've created like this amazing architecture.
It is beautiful. It's so spectacular.
It
It's
is.
definitely one of a kind and something to see here at the Royal Botanical Gardens. And it's great for children because, especially the one that's our holiday train out in the McQuestion Theatre.
Right.
You can see like the kids, like they run over top of your head. So you have the bridges and they're down by your feet as well. So it's great for all ages.
Well, I was saying to you that my son just turned 5, so I mean it's going to be like
Yes.
super fun for kids, and that's
Yes.
again the great part is because adults can come here as well, even grandpa and grandma, and appreciate how this has all been put together,
Yeah.
and of course everything else that comes with the RBG. So let's talk
Absolutely.
a little bit about some of the focus weekends that when Santa's
Yes.
coming, obviously that's a big weekend
Yes.
for kids.
So part of my job, which is super cool, is that I get to work with Santa.
That's pretty
so
awesome.
Santa has been here already from November 14th, and he's here right up until December 21st. So December
Wow.
21st is the last day to see Santa.
Okay.
He's here Saturdays and Sundays from 10 to 4 all of those days. So definitely something that's a must-see to come
Yes.
see. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we actually have our breakfast with Santa and Mrs. Claus this year. So Mrs. Claus has been our new addition to our breakfast with Santa.
Wow,
So it's awesome
you guys
to-
are
yeah.
really like hooked up.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's awesome to be able to work with both of them. Unfortunately for this year, we are sold out. It's December 8th and December 15th of this year. But if you are really interested in checking out Breakfast with Santa and being a part of this event, I highly recommend you check our website. Late September is when the tickets go on sale for that.
That's good. It's always good to know now for
Yes.
next year, and
Yes.
put it in your head and remember that, because it's something that obviously those kind of things are sold out in
It
advance,
sells out
right?
so fast.
Santa only comes around this time of
That's
year.
right.
He's a hot star. So
Yeah.
okay, and then you're talking about the reindeer.
Yes, so it's one of my favorite weekends is our
Okay.
reindeer weekend, which is December 14th and 15th, and the reindeer are here. So Santa and Mrs. Claus are bringing 2 reindeer with them, and they're the live reindeer.
Like real live reindeer.
Yeah, I always get phone calls of people saying, "Is it live reindeer? Or is it what is
Right.
it?" And I'm
Are
like,
they
"No,
stuffed?"
no, it is Santa's real reindeer." So
Oh, that's
you can come,
amazing.
you can pet the reindeer, you can talk to Santa's elves that are the reindeer handlers, and you can get some awesome photo ops with Santa and Mrs. Claus in the sleigh with the reindeer in the background.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So again, it just gives people more opportunity to bring their kids and be part of See Santa, because you know
Exactly.
the average person really doesn't want to be standing at the mall in the lineup for 400 hours.
Really,
This
really
is a better
important.
experience,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. And while you're waiting to see Santa, we actually have children's activities going on.
Okay.
So what you do is you kind of put your name, as opposed to lining up, there's children's
Yes.
activities for you to do instead.
That's
so
great.
eventually when it's your time, your name will be called, you can come up and you can go right in to see Santa, as opposed to having to wait in the long line. And
Yes.
what's really cool about the children's activities is they are all natural materials as well, which blend in really well with
Oh,
the
isn't that
botanical
neat?
trains.
Well, that's great
Yeah.
though, because then kids don't feel like they're waiting. They're actually, again, interacting and having fun.
Yeah.
And I can imagine just the whole vibe is just very cool here.
It's awesome.
And
It's very warm and festive, and we're really focused on creating a tradition here at Royal Botanical Gardens. We want to create a space that people will want to come back to year after year after year, and we're every year evolving. So we have the trains, but this year this Mediterranean garden train was installed in October. So this is the new addition to this particular holiday traditions event, and next year there'll be another added bonus to come back and always, you know, to keep coming back year after year after year.
I love that. And again, you guys are always thinking, and so, you know, moving on next after this segment, we're going into the atrium area, and we're talking about what the next installation that's happening in January that moves through into April. So that's the cool part, is that after all of this, a couple of months of holiday fun and all the magic that comes with that, then we move into all the great stuff that's going to be there.
That's right.
So Adrienne, thank you so much for talking to us
Thanks for
again.
having me.
So again, let's remind everybody that this runs up until when?
January 5th.
Okay.
Santa and sort of the festive stuff ends December 21st.
Right.
But after that, there's still children's activities, and the trains are definitely still running up until January 5th.
Okay, so which is perfect for all those, that lull after Christmas,
That's
right? Before New Year's
There's
and all that.
still stuff going on in this building, so definitely check our website for all information that has to do with community groups, bands coming in, and then Santa, reindeer events, things like that.
You guys have a good website too.
Yeah,
Okay, very good. Thank you, Adrienne.
Awesome,
All right,
thank
well now
you.
we're going to move to the atrium.
TERRA, where color lives.
Good morning. Welcome back to TERRA at Home. We've now shifted within the RBG building to the atrium. I'm here with Head of Education, Barb McKean. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning. Behind this beautiful wall of life. And we want to talk about here now in December, but moving forward into January in the new year. And what we love about the RBG is that you guys put together these amazing exhibits that last for a couple of months so that it opens up for everybody to come and visit and see. And let's talk about what you guys have planned for the new year.
Well, we're ramping up for a great winter, looking at the world of carnivorous plants, so plants as predators, and animal defenses. So we have Savage Gardens and Nature's Ninjas.
I love that.
And looking at a little bit of a different twist on the natural world.
And what's good about all of your exhibits as well is it's great for everybody. So interest to young children as well as adults. Always, no matter what, it just seems to be that way. And I don't know how you guys come up with these ideas.
Yeah.
But let's give us some background on how, obviously a lot of it's going to be within this room we're standing in right now.
Yep. We'll be set up, the main floor of the atrium will feature an exhibit that we're bringing in from the States. Savage Gardens, it looks at they call it the real and imaginary world of carnivorous plants. So, you know, people might have seen Little Shop of Horrors and wonder if Audrey's real. And
Whole
that
Venus
sort of
flytrap thing, right?
Yes, yeah. But we'll have Venus flytraps and pitcher plants and butterworts and horn bladderwort and things that eat insects. They actually hunt and eat.
And people never get to see this stuff in real life. Now you have a couple here that we want to show us. I know we don't have a lot of time to talk about it, but this little guy right here, you said he's full grown.
Yep, full grown. It's the sundew, and it's one that actually has little sticky glands on hairs on its leaves, and insects are attracted to it. They land, they get stuck, kind of like fly paper, and then the plant spits more goo on them, and slowly the leaves curl up around it, and it digests them, and then the leaves open up.
So savage, I love it. And we have to show this one as well down here. This is so cool.
Tropical pitcher plants, Nepenthes. These things are great. They've done research in these in the rainforest. 35, 40 different species of animals that live inside there. They don't get digested, but the odd ones that come in from the outside do.
Very cool. And the show runs from?
From January the 18th until April the 13th.
Barb, thanks for the good information. And again, lots to see and do in the new year here at the RBG. That's it for TERRA at Home. Have a good weekend.